Hey guys, welcome. Today I will be talking about smooth visual effects with linear interpolation, which means Lerp. I think it's a common pattern which is being used in gaming industry for a while. Then I will try to create a project from scratch. I will try to select third person and you can keep up with me. I will call it Lerp examples. I will try to cover like timelines and timer approaches together here. I will try to talk about the advantages and disadvantages about these both approaches. So for example, if we open it, we have it's like a mannequin in third person, and I will try to add a zoom action to it. So if I try to move my mouse wheel, then I will try to zoom in. If I try to wheel backwards, I will try to zoom out. So initially, how we will do this? So as you can see, we have some input actions and input mapping context. I think this is the proper way. If you are doing any kind of action to your player, just use these actions and mapping context. So we will start defining these, a new action for us, for example, which is going to be input action zoom. Let's go to third person, like content, third person, input actions. We need a new action. Let's call it input action, and you will find the same thing. Let's call it input action zoom. So as I said, let's open it. As I said, I will be using my mouse wheel. So my mouse wheel have only float, means like I can get a minus or positive. Like there's only one dimension, which means float. So that's it. You can save it and close this one. And I need a mapping for this zooming operation. So I will define my mouse wheel is gonna trigger this. And here also input, go to input mapping context. If you open these mappings, you will see these actions, how they are mapped. For example, jump is spacebar. And if you are using controller, face button triggers jump or whatsoever. We will add a new mapping here, which is gonna be our zoom action. And I will open here and I will try to add a new action to it, which is gonna be my mouse and my wheel axis. Actually, that's it. We can just save it and close it. So let's open our player. In third person blueprint, as you can see, we have a third person character. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna copy this one. I will go to my content. I will create a player folder, because we will be creating different players with different approaches to show between them. I will just call it maybe, let's say, custom player, because we will be editing this custom player from now on. Also, let's go to our world settings and let's give this custom player to our game mode. If you don't see this world settings, you go to window and you can click this one and you can see world settings. As you can see, there's a game mode override, which is using third person game mode already. And I will go here and default pawn class, I can select my custom player from here. So it is just a copy of the original one. As you can see, there is no difference for now. So we can start playing around with this custom player. Let's open it. As you can see, we have different input actions in Blueprint. So the only thing that I need to do, I will create a new event. I will just call it with my new action, put action zoom. So I will get an action value. Let's try to print this value. Let's see if it is working or not. Let's play around. If I am wheeling forward, I am getting 1. If I am wheeling backwards, I am getting -1. Okay, that's good. I am able to get my action values. So, for example, how I'm gonna achieve the zooming operation. As you can see, I will go to viewport and you see our camera. And our camera is inside a camera boom, which holds the distance between my character and the camera. So the thing that I need to do is play around with this target arm length. See, for example, if I play around with this value, as you can see, camera is getting closer or getting further from my character. Let's put it in a default value. And the idea is I will play around with this component basically. So let's go to our event graph. Let's create our variables. For example, in my character, there is no zoom option for now. Let's create our zoom value, which is going to be float. And I need to set, initially it is 0, but actually it is not 0. It has to be set to this camera boom object. So what I'm doing, I will just go to event begin play. I will create a new method here. I will just set this zoom value to my camera boom. I will just drag camera boom and I will get arm length. After getting this arm length, I will set to my zoom value. And after this, actually, I can combine these things into a function, and I can call it initialize, like init player. So if there's anything I need to set for my player, I will just go into this one and I will set my other values as well. So my graph is gonna be neat and clean. Okay, now I have the zoom value, and the first option is getting the zoom value and setting the camera boom arm length. That's the easy thing. So here I will get my zoom value, and I need to multiply this value with something because this 1 is too less. I will multiply with -100, because if I wheel my mouse forward, I'm getting 1. Means I need to be zooming into my character, so I need to decrease the value actually, but that's why I am plussing with -100. So, and after that I will add these two values together, and I will set my zoom value. This is gonna be my new zoom value, and after that I will set arm length to this new zoom value. That's the basic idea. So if I try to open it, and as you can see, if I move, then I will be doing this. So this is totally fine, but there is no smoothing operation. So how we can achieve this smoothing, smooth zooming? So let's actually collapse these things to a function. I will call it set zoom. So this function is responsible for setting zoom operation. Let's call it action value. So initially, let's try to add some limitation, because if I do it, then there's, as you can see, there is no limits and nothing I can do forever, which we don't want it. So before setting our zoom value, we need to clamp this value between some limits. There's a clamp float method, which we can give it. It's gonna be minimum 50 and let's say maximum 1000, and then I can set this value. And here I cannot zoom more than this, and I cannot zoom out more than this, which is gonna be good. Also, you can go to viewport and you can play around with this here, because I don't want to see the ass every time if I zoom in. So here, so the next idea is making this smooth operation to this zooming. So after setting zoom, I need to I will add the first approach is using timelines. So the idea is I will be using Lerp. So what is this Lerp? For example, there are 3 values. The first value, which is like a float Lerp, for example. Here, for example, let's say the first number is 10 and the second is 0. And also we have an alpha. Alpha is blending between these 2 values. So if the alpha is 0, then it's going to be returning the first float here. And if it is 0, I will be getting 10. If it is 1, then I will be getting 0. So anything between this 1 and 0 is going to be blending. For example, 0.5 is going to be giving me 5. At 0.2 is going to be giving me value of 2. So that's the idea. So I will be setting from at some point to some point with some alpha value. So this alpha will be driving how our visual is gonna look like. So here in this case I need an alpha. So the alpha is gonna be provided by a timeline. So I will just call it add timeline. So this timeline actually is a component. If you double click on it, you will see some tracks. You can add different, for example, float track, vector track, event track. I will be talking all of them. For example, in our case, we need a float. For example, if I compile it and if I go here, you will see a new track pin is there because it is going to be giving a float. So what is this timeline actually? I will rename it for alpha because I need an alpha. So for a shortcut, you can press shift and click somewhere and it's going to create a keyframe. So initially I will call it 0, 0. So at the time of 0, the value is going to be 0. I will create another keyframe here and the time is 1 and the value is going to be 1. I will just click here to normalize this. So the timeline is working like, for example, here in the 0.5 seconds is gonna give me this value, which is also tells me the value is gonna be 0.5. Here is gonna be point until it reaches 1 second. After 1 second, it's gonna be always be giving me value of 1. So this is like a linear curve for now, but you can click right click on it and you can select different approaches, but I will be as you can see, there are shortcuts. I'm mostly using shortcuts. I'm just selecting all of my keyframes and I press 1 and it's gonna apply this ease in and ease out. For example, here you see at the time changes I'm getting a different values. So here our timeline is going to be driving our alpha value. So after setting zoom, I will call this timeline to start from scratch. So every time I trigger set zoom, this timeline is going to be updating from scratch and it will give me the alpha value. And here I will lerp and I will connect to this alpha value. And here I need a starting point and ending point. So the ending point is gonna be my zoom value because I set it already here, the zoom value. So I will delete here because I don't need to set it from here directly because the timeline is gonna be setting for us. And I will delete this one. I will go to my event graph. I will get this zoom value. And this is gonna be an ending point. Means the alpha is reaching, alpha is 1, then I will be getting zoom value here. And the other hand, this the starting point. So just don't do this because if you get camera boom and get arm length, and if you connect it to this the first option, means every time this timeline is being updated, it is getting the current position, the current arm length, which actually is wrong. So don't do this. In set zoom operation, I need to set a variable for zoom start. So here I will call zoom start to my camera boom arm length from here. And after compiling, go to event graph and you have this zoom start from now and you can connect to it. What's the difference? Because I am setting this option once I trigger this action. Means it, for example, I am scrolling one time and this timeline is gonna be running until it ends. But every time this timeline is update itself, then it will try to get the arm length at the current position, which is not gonna give you the exact same result. So that's why I am setting this option for only one input action. In that sense, this timeline is gonna be driving the exact points. So after updating, actually this I can set this arm length from now. And the arm length is gonna be this lerp value. So let's go and play. If I zoom in, then you will see this smooth options, and also I cannot zoom after this, and also I cannot zoom out more than that. And you will have this option. And also you can go to timeline and you can play around with this curve values. For example, you do something and you will get a different zooming visuals, like visual effects, let's say. Also you can play around with this. If you want to make it faster, you can play around with your curve and you will see, I mean, you can achieve different things here. This is the first option, how you can achieve like smoothing operation. The most of the time this is gonna be enough for, let's say, 80-90% of the Unreal users, but I will also be talking about the downsides of these timelines. So let's collapse these things into a function also to make it look clean. I will call it update zoom. And also you can create a new comment for this case, and you can call it like zoom action. So the first thing, let's talk about the good things about timelines. You have play option, you can stop, you can reverse from end, you can set a new time, you know the direction, and you know it is finished or not. You can play around, and also you can add different tracks. For example, you can add a vector track here. For example, you have X, Y, and Z vector values. If you want a new, for example, here, if I go to my event graph, you will see this vector, which I can set it from the timeline, and it will give me the results depending on the time. This is also an option, but the good thing about the timelines, actually these timelines acting every tick, which means we are not using this event tick option, because I think it has never been suggested for using event tick for that kind of events. So that's why everyone is trying to avoid it. Also, I will try to avoid in this case as well. So timeline is really good for avoiding these things, but still this timeline is being updated for every tick, which also gives you an option to make sure that this operation is gonna be finished after 1 second every time. If it really doesn't matter how much frames you are seeing. For example, let's try to play around, let's say, at FPS, and I see I am seeing like 120 FPS here. So if I am zooming only 1, it is gonna take exactly 1 second to finish this action. So I will overwrite my FPS to 20. Let's say I'm really getting a horrible performance, but still, if I try to zoom in and zoom out, and still it's gonna take exactly 1 second to complete it. So this, maybe you have a like very important movements that has to be on time, so that's why the timelines is gonna be a good choice for you. And also on the other hand, about the timelines, there are different options. For example, time dilation, you can ignore time dilation. Let's actually talk a bit on this time dilation thing. So time dilation is actually means like how fast your world is acting depending on the time. So we can manipulate it actually. So I will just go to my level blueprint just for an example. If I press keyboard 1, for example, I want to set global time dilation. I will get global time dilation, and I will multiply with it, let's say 0.8, and I will set it. So in this case, whenever I press 1, then as you can see, my character is gonna be slowing down. I am adding a slow motion because the world is not acting anymore at the current speed of the real world. So here, if I try to zoom, as you can see, it also affects my zoom. So even I press too much, almost my character is frozen because the time is so slow. So I'm zooming right now. but even you cannot see because it affects. But there's an option, you can just ignore the time dilation and it's gonna be fine. You have this kind of operation, so even if your character is almost frozen about the time dilation, but still you can zoom in and zoom out. This is also like a good side about these timelines, and most of the time this is gonna be enough for you. So let's talk about the downsides of timeline. So the bad thing about timeline is it's a component. So if you go here in variables, you will see this timeline, which is an actor component actually, which means it has an own life cycle and it takes memory on this object from now on. If you are using multiple timelines, let's say maybe not for like a few of them, but maybe you are using maybe 20, 50, I don't know, many of them, probably you will have some performance issues because it takes, I think, RAM, because it is like an own component and ticks, and also timeline is all it tries to tick every frame for this actor. It is like almost as the same as event tick here in our case. Okay, on the other hand, I was checking some examples from Epic Games and I found a mobile game example, and I thought I was trying to find some timelines example and Lerp implementations, but I couldn't find it. And I thought that, okay, maybe because for mobile games the performance is a key thing, so they tried to do they used a different approach for implementing these Lerps, which is this crop out sample project. It is there in already in Unreal Engine Marketplace for free. You can just get it. And I just found out like they are using timers with a function event, and they are triggering this lerp operation inside this method. So we will be doing the same thing here in our project with trying to achieve the same thing here in this timelines. So I will just go and copy my custom player, let's say custom player timer, and I will open this one. So here I will just delete timeline. Also, let's delete this update zoom function. Set zoom, let's keep it for now because it is just setting the proper values for us. And also initialize player, we are setting the zoom volume. So we will be using the same approach what the Epic Games have used, because this timers actually will be a really lightweight version of timelines. So actually we are trying to replace the timeline with timers. Actually timer, let's talk about the timer. Let's call it like set timer by event, for example. Here I am just setting a timer, but most of the time if you are using a different programming language, and you might say, oh, this timer is an asynchronous thing and it is working in a different thread, but actually no, in Unreal Engine these timers are ticking in the main game thread, which means they are acting like almost event tick, but you can set the time for them. So we have the control over how frequent this timers is going to be ticking, which is going to be very good for us, and it's going to be really a lightweight solution for applying this linear interpolation, these Lerps. For example, I will be doing the same thing. I will create a new function. I will call it keep tracking, because here maybe I am using, for example, I will be using this for setting zoom for now, but if I want to do other things, which is depending like some smoothing operation, I can use this function, because this timer is going to be calling this method for me already. So I will drag out this event function and I call create event, and here I can call it like keep tracking. And after setting the zoom value, and I will just connect with it. And here we have a time option. So Initially, let's check how did they do this. Initially, they gave like 0.01666. What does it mean? Actually, it is like a frame value. For example, how did they get it? Open your calculator and press 1 divided by 60 and you will get this value. Means they are trying to target 60 fps for this method. So if you want to target different frames for this operation, you can also go for it. Let's try to make this one, and it's gonna be 1 divided by, let's say, 80. I want to make it a bit smoother than 60. So here I will call it looping. So whenever I use this player and this event is gonna be triggered, let's call it like print string, and it's gonna say hello. I will just go to my map and I will override my default pawn class to custom player timer. If I start it, and you will see this hellos. Okay, means my timer is working. I will just delete this one. So here, let's try to achieve the same thing what we have in timelines. So here we have a one more variable which we can know the time. So let's call it zoom time, and it's gonna be also float. So whenever I initialize this one, let's set this zoom time with get time seconds, I think. Yes, this is gonna give the exact time seconds for, let's read it. Actually returns time in seconds since world was brought up. Also time dilation is affected by this one. Okay, when if it is stopped when the game pauses. Okay, so this is good for now, but if you want to also get real time seconds, you can also give this one to here. It really it depends on what you need, but let's go with gain time seconds for now. So I know the zoom time, and this keep tracking, I need to know the alpha value. So, but I need to get it from a curve. So I will open my custom, the existing player, this timeline. I will just right click anywhere and I will create external curve, and I will try to create a new, let's say, extras, and I will create like curve zoom. So here this timeline is going to be using my zoom curve, which I saved here in extras, so we can play around with the zoom curve to affect both players. So I will just go there, and also I will create a variable which is going to be our zoom curve, because we need to get the alpha value from that curve, and it's going to be a float curve, I think. It's going to be curve float. Yes, this is like an object. It's an object reference. Just compile it and you will see you can select it now. So this is going to be our zoom curve. So keep tracking option, what it is going to do, I will try to get my zoom time, and also I will call the same thing which I called here, get time second, and I will subtract from it to know exactly how many seconds have passed. So here actually I can, this is gonna give me some timing value, so I need to call my curve to get the value of it. So I will just get my zoom curve, I will call it get float value, and this is gonna be in time. So I get the alpha here, the float value is gonna be giving me the alpha value. So I can lerp this one, which is gonna be the same thing. It is gonna be zoom start from A, the alpha is gonna go here, and I will try to reach the zoom value and the returning value, and also get the camera boom and set arm length. And this lerp output is is gonna be my arm length. So let's compile it and let's try to. So if you notice that if I will try to do it again, as you can see I start from 0 because this zoom start is 0 initially. So I need to go to init player and also set. Actually we can do it here because these things have to be at the same. So zoom start to be the same as zoom value. So if I set hard, it's gonna be, but as you can see we don't have the smoothing operation. Let's see what happened. Keep tracking. I'm getting a game second because I need to set the exact zoom time whenever I trigger my action, which is gonna be set zoom option. So we have zoom start, okay, but zoom time has to be set to the get game seconds. So here actually it will be updating correctly. Also it is the same approach, but it is targeted to the 80 FPS. Like means if I see more, even I am seeing like 160 FPS here, but still this timer is gonna be ticking for only 80 FPS target FPS. So means it is not being ticked for every frame, which means it's gonna be more performance for my game if I want to do other things. Also you can go to init player, and if you want to make it like 60 FPS or let's make it 20 FPS, which is gonna be very jittery, but let's try. See, also you can give, for example, 144, even I can call it like 2050. I'm not seeing it here. Actually from here I might be getting a less performance because I see a less FPS than which is targeted to. In that sense I can click this max once per frame, then I can ensure that it is not being triggered 2 times in the same frame. So here it will be triggering the same like 160 FPS what I am seeing here in this scene. But the idea is keeping this value as low as possible to make it performant, because the idea is we are trying to avoid of the timelines behavior here, because timelines is acting every frame. Yes, actually we achieved that we need to do. So we are able to replace these timelines with only like a lightweight timers, and we can achieve the same result. So maybe we can take it a bit step further, because for only zooming that we have zoom value, zoom start, zoom time, zoom curve, like different things. And if I want to have a different let's say tracking, so I need to define these whole values again to keep tracking of the same, let's say a different value. So the idea here is we can create like a basic object which can take our curves and like start and end values initially, and I can get the values when I want to update it. So in extras I will try to go with a new blueprint, and I will go to all classes. I will select object, which is gonna be nothing initially, which is like a default object. So I will call it blueprint, let's say float lerp track. So the idea is I will try to get these things to keep here in this object. So initially let's create our variables. It's gonna be float. Let's say we need a start value, we need an end value, we need maybe we don't have to store the current value, but we can think about it later. We need a time value, and also for float operation we need a curve float. Let's say float curve, and it's gonna be curve float object reference. So I will create a function which creates for all the required things for us. We need to set start, we need to set end. Initially actually the end is gonna be exactly the same with start. We need a time value, and also we need to set the float curve as well. So here our initial let's say construction event for our new object. Let's compile it, and let's create get value method, which is gonna give us exactly what we are doing here in keep tracking option. We are trying to get the curve and trying to get the time seconds and whatsoever, and we will try to replicate it here because we can call this object to directly get the value from it. So here I will get my time, and also I need another input here which is gonna give me the current time when this function is called. I will call it current time, so I can subtract from this one to this one, and I can get the same thing called get float value, and this is gonna be my in time. And here I can call Lerp, and this was my alpha, and it's gonna be from start to end. And then this is gonna be my returning value. Let's call it value. It will go from start to end with that alpha. So here I need to a new option to update it if I want to trigger it again. Maybe we can call it trigger, and here in that sense I need a time value. Actually I need to set the time to the current time, which is the exact same. I'll set the current time here, and also I need to set start value and end values together. So here I will give him the current time. I will give this object the current time. I will set the start and end values. Actually we can, okay, and then the trigger, I will call the trigger function. It will set start end and the time values, and whenever I call this get value method, and it's gonna give the float curve and get the alpha, and it's gonna be lerping from start to end. Also I will go to make this whole variables private because I don't want them to be reached from other side, like outside of this class. If I want them to get, if I want to get them, I will create some, for example, get end. Probably we will need this function, and here we'll be getting end value and returning this end. Also I will call it pure. Also we can call it in a getter category, so we are not going to be confused with this get value and the other things. So here the idea is in custom player timer I will try to replace the whole these values with my float Lerp track. So for this one we can create a blueprint library which creates and constructs this object and returns to us, because if I go here and I need to construct this object actually. So I can have a blueprint library which can do this for us, like in basically let's call it library, and you will see this blueprint function library. I will call it bpl, let's say utils, and here create float lerp track, and here I will be creating like construct object from class, and this will be float lerp track. And also we need let's call it from an actor, let's say owner actor, because like who is constructing this lerp track, and I can give myself from my whatever actor I am trying to create this object from. An owner is gonna be like actor object reference, and I can connect this auto to here, and I will call init function. So here I need a start value, I need time value, I need float curve. I can compile it, and also I need to return the created object. I can keep it like a return value for now, that's fine. And from here in initialize player, I am trying to get to some stuff. I'm trying to zoom time, I'm doing so many things. I don't need them anymore. Actually, what I'm gonna do, I will just remove them. Zoom start, zoom time. Also, I don't need zoom curve, because I will create what was the action? Create float lerp track. Create float lerp track, and here I can give the start and the other options here. So for example, initially I will get my camera boom, the arm length. This is gonna be my starting point, and time I will get time seconds. I think it's gonna be our time, and float curve is gonna be the same curve we created before. And also let's promote to a variable, and let's call it zoom lerp track. And we can call our timer function after this. So if I go to update zoom, actually let's go to set zoom function, because we have removed everything. So what should happen here? I need to call the trigger thing to trigger this now. But as you can see, I don't have any zoom values here. So I will let's try to get zoom torque, and let's call it trigger. So it requires a starting position, an end position, and the current time. The current time is easy because it's gonna be get time seconds, and starting point is gonna be our starting point, which is our camera boom, and the end point I need to get the camera boom, not camera boom, zoom lerp track and a value to clamp the values, because I don't know how, like where to clamp this value. I will just get my zoom lerp track and get end, and this is gonna give us the end value, so I can summarize these values together, and I can add these things, and I can clamp them, and I can connect to here. Let's go here. Get float value. This is keep tracking. Okay, let's try to remove these things. because we don't need lerp and everything. We just need to get the correct value from zoom lerp track. I will just call get my zoom lerp track, and I will call get value, and I will give my current time and it's gonna it's gonna give me the value. Okay, and we also updated our keep tracking methods. Just go to init player and double check. How did we construct our lerp track? We need to set the owner. It's gonna be like self-reference, and it's gonna be setting our zoom lerp track, and it should work fine. Let's go. If I try to zoom in, and it will have the same functionality. Player timer. Let's go and check it. Player timer, yes. Actually, everything works great. As you can see, it's a bit jittery. Let's go and maybe we can set this one a bit higher. So in this sense, I will get more smooth visuals. So here, for example, I can also collapse the function, and I can call it track zoom. And if I want to track different things, I can also create a zoom lerp track, or maybe you want to create a different lerp track, which can maybe with maybe transforms, maybe vectors, or maybe colors. You can play around with this lerp track. You can copy paste it, and you can get your track object here, and you can update your things. Also, one more thing to mention about this timer approach. Once you try to manipulate this global time dilation, as I mentioned, that these timers actually are using, where is my timer? Yes, these timers actually these timers are using the current game thread to update their status, their timings. So whenever you change the time dilation, this also is going to affect the timer. So there's a different ways to avoid this situation, but I will not touch in this video. But yes, for example, here I'm using my thing, and if I try to do something with the timer approach, as you can see, it is going to be affected as well, which is not really good for time dilation. But yes, still you are able to configure for target FPS, and it is not going to be ticking every frame like timelines, and it's going to be more lightweight solution. If you want to only for small visual things, still you can go with this approach if you need to. Yeah, I think we have covered this both solution for like timelines or timers. So the conclusion, I think it still depends what you want to achieve. For timelines, it is always good if your operations needs to be exact on time, because this timelines is going to be ticking on every frame, and you have good options to track them. Or even you can create an event track, and you can call some functions if you want to add some particles or whatsoever. This is also a good option. Like most of the time, the timelines is going to be enough for you, as I mentioned. But yeah, for timers, if you have like a small operation, and if you want it to be more lightweight than the timelines, for example, you are like tracking many things at the same time, and you don't want to create each timelines for all of them. So still you can go with kind of like a common tracking methods, and you can update them. And also for this is one of the best things, you can specify the frame rate. So for example, if I go here and in standalone game, probably I will see many frames here. So here in that sense, it is not gonna be my frames are not gonna be affected by this change. So for example, if I see 260 or something, but still if I am zooming or doing any kind of tracking operation, it's not gonna be heavy for my game thread, because I targeted like maybe 80 FPS or like 100, I don't know, but my performance is not gonna be affected by these timers. Yeah, I think this is the conclusion. So still, maybe I mentioned something wrong, maybe which maybe you have a better approaches, maybe a different ticking options, I don't know, but you can mention in the comments, and we can discuss more over there. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you guys, see you later.